Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
Judge
Someday
Judy?
the mountain might get him, but the law never will.
Okay, that's new to me. What was that one?
Dukes of Hazzard, man.
Okay, right, sorry. I was going for Judge
Bo
Judy.
and Luke
but,
Duke,
yeah.
played by Waylon Jennings, and the best thing about that one was there's a fade shot over the titles where you see his leather-bound telly.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Unless I'm misremembering that.
Hey guys, welcome to That Pedal Show VCQ. It is the 4th of March 2019. Dan here.
How is it? The 4th of March 2019. Mick here. Hello.
Boy, oh boy.
It was like Christmas yesterday, wasn't it?
Right, this week's video we had the various spring reverbs.
Yes, including the real spring reverbs and some not real springs.
Yes. Okay, Alex Stage and Music says, fantastic show, but I did find your lack of slow dancing in a burning room disturbing. Very nice.
I deliberately didn't play it. I always play Slow Dancing in a Burning Room by John Mayer and Lenny by SRV, and I thought, for once I'm going to try not to play either of those things. And I think we managed to avoid it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure I played the same old stuff.
Yeah, well... 3 years in of videos, it's hard not to play the same old stuff. Although Dan is improving his harmonic and adventurousness, whereas I'm actually...
I'm improving my harmonic adventurousness, and Simon is improving his editing skills.
Okay, so it wasn't all good though. Mark Sutherland says, I have to say, I'm not a fan of the cork sniffing episodes where you compare similar pedals that will ultimately fool some schmo, that's you watching, into buying the one that sounded the best on your rig without trying it out for themselves before buying. I think your efforts are far better spent laying out a palette of varieties within a particular pedal genre to enlighten us on how... okay.
Isn't that what we did?
No, he's saying you should compare spring with plate with Hall, and we've done that before, and we'll continue to do it. But, we all like a deep dive, and the whole point of TPS is to say we're never, ever trying to pick the best. All we're ever trying to do is go, here's how they sound different, and this might shorten your journey to the thing that's going to work for you.
Yeah, if you hear something and your ears prick up and go, oh, I like that one. And it's so interesting. Sorry, I'll get the words out. It's so interesting because in every episode, no matter what pedals we've got on the board, someone will always go, oh man, that one sounded fantastic.
I like that one the
that
best.
One sounded fantastic.
I like that one the best.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm always amazed by that. You put two pedals up and, half the globe thinks that one's better and half the globe thinks that one's better, which is all what's great. But I did like the final line, which was, this episode felt more like an advertisement in disguise.
For what?
For what? I know. If only we were getting paid, that would be brilliant.
Oh, and to continue the disappointment.
I wish there was much this week.
Kool-Aid 76, Trico Josh Berg, Steely Dan and others were perturbed at the emission of the Fender 6G15.
Which is the big reverb tank. And similarly, Soul Chiller, Matt A. Johnson, Matthew Menier, Kyle Patterson, Ingrid Cold, RCH Guitar 99, Crescent, AP74, Joe Peasy Foshizi, and Richard Swan. I'm trying to mention as many people as I can. Variously wanted to know where was the Boss RV6, the J-Rocket Boeing, the EHX Holy Grail, the Strymon Flint, the Surfy Bear, and the Catlin Bread Topanga. But we can't do every pedal all the time. But I did actually think that all of those suggestions, the big Fender tank and all of those ones we just mentioned, were fair game for a round two.
Okay, great.
Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Graham Ross says, TPS is excellent. Thank you, Graham. And I have enjoyed and been inspired by every episode I've seen. But I do have one request. Could you try to use humbuckers and P90s a bit more? We bring them in when we feel is appropriate. The reality is, for me, I could do every gig on Red on my telly. I don't absolutely need any other guitar, and it's the guitar that I gravitate towards. And I think, and also with Blue for you, and those guitars give it a certain continuity. Yes, it's a good point, and maybe we should, branch out a little bit more with the humbuckers and stuff, and we do try to. But it's,
I put this question in because it raises a really interesting point that when you're dealing with variables, i.e. loads of different pedals that we're trying to listen to, different amps, you need some sort of consistency. And I am still searching for the humbucker guitar that I am at home with. I love the 335, don't get me wrong, it's a brilliant guitar. But
Oh, you do sound great on that
I'm
guitar.
still thinking differently when I play it, and there's still a barrier between me and what comes out. Whereas with a Strat, there's nothing, no barrier. It's just I don't have to think about playing; it just comes out.
Yeah.
So that's the reason. And yeah, there's an SG on the shopping list, which will happen, and maybe I'll feel more at home with that. I do feel at home with the 335, and then there's the Junior. I've had this out recently, 360 LT with the whatever they're called, gold foils.
It's a stunning guitar.
Been trying to bond with this, the S2, but I've just got to think about it too much.
Yeah.
And
Does that ever go away though?
not with blue.
No,
It goes away entirely.
But yeah, what I'm saying is, if it's like when I pick up my Les Paul, and I love that guitar, but it feels different, and I've got to approach it differently.
Yeah.
You know, if I spend as much time on that as I do with the telly,
That's
then
it. It's hours in, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Anyway, sorry, that was a long answer to a short question.
Boy.
Tomato, Mad Car Guitars, Matthew Odell and Rob Flax. And I think it was Tomato who summed this up. Apparently you don't hear me when I yell at the screen. Decay! The decay knob on the Dark World only controls the dark side, and the Dwell is the world side. This is because when we were messing about with the Dark World, I'm twiddling knobs there that didn't have...
Oh, I was as well.
Yeah. We'll come back to the Dark World, but clearly we don't know how to use it, and you're exactly right.
I must say though, that's gone on the board.
Has it?
I love it.
Okay, well, let's definitely tell you what we'll do. I've got a new pedal this week. You've got a new pedal this week. So let's put them both in a pick and mix.
Okay.
My new pedal is the Duelist by
spectacular thing.
King Tone Effects. Yeah,
okay. Matthews Madej, and I apologise profusely. So, what difference does spring length actually make, and how does the number of springs in the tank affect the sound?
Interesting.
It is very interesting.
Because the Anna sounds destroyed my preconceptions of what I thought was the case.
Right. Yeah. If you... We did a show before. We had a sort of deeper look at the white whale, and the white whale has got a switch between 2 springs and 3 springs, and you hear it really clearly when you add the 3rd spring in. It just sounds a bit deeper.
Yeah,
it is a deeper effect on the reverb. The shorter the spring, you'll hear it in a. It's easier to hear in a long spring, and it's the distance of the reflections. It's like in a hall reverb. When I go, you'll hear the reflections of the sides of the walls and things. And the spring reverb has those reflections in it as well. And the shorter those springs are, the shorter the reflection time is.
Yeah,
and that's a big part of that small.
Which is where you get
reverb.
that. It almost sounds like a bunch of mini delays.
That's it.
So what's interesting is, what would a long spring tank with 2 springs sound like compared to a short one with 3 springs? Because you're sort of cancelling out, the longer tank gives you more space, but more springs gives you more space.
Sure.
Or a smoother sound.
Yeah. But the shorter those, the quicker those reflections come in, and so it's.
Yeah. And then, of course, we'll come on to this, but then there's how much signal you send it and all the rest of
that
it.
stuff.
Patrick McManus says, is there any way to keep distortions and fuzzes from absolutely hammering the signal on my Boss FRV1 Fender Reverb pedal? This is a problem when using reverb pedal on your board, or when using it in the loop and switching channels in your amp, because what happens is you're just hitting it harder. Daniel?
You are. If you use a compressor for your clean sound, and then that will level up or will go a longer way to level up the differences in level going into that reverb pedal. So with a compressor on for your clean sound, you'll find that the reverb pedal is getting more signal anyway, and you'll be able to dial that back a bit. And then when you go from that to your fuzz, it'll be a bit more even.
Yeah. It's tough, that, isn't it? Or you just bathe in the glorious extra reverb.
Yes.
But that's the thing that you may or may not want.
Christopher Clement says, I have Satanic Yoga Mat's first album. You can forget the great solo on the track Crowley's Matt Stop.
We stumbled into the occult by making Satanists, and a load of people made really funny jokes about Santanarists and Santarists. Which is great. It was a nice way to lighten the conversation.
It was just it was a benign chat about yoga that suddenly went bizarre.
Because Aleister Crowley wrote books on yoga or something. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Michael Kaz, hi Michael. If you accidentally kick an amp, for example a Princeton Reverb, will you damage the spring tank, amp or reverb in any way? Yes. They used to do it. It was a thing. You kick the amp and it goes bang and sounds awesome. But yeah, of course, if you exert any physical pressure on anything, it will break it after a while. I suppose it's all about how deft you are with your booting.
That's right. Alper Ademi, among others, says, I'm interested to know how you set up a wet-dry rig in regards to the reverb. Do you add a bit of reverb into the dry amp at all, or is it completely dry? I'll absolutely add a bit of reverb into the dry amp.
Yeah, I do.
And it's... The great thing about having the reverb into the dry amp is that you also have the option to turn that off. You know, if you want to have that dry amp just really super dry,
pocus
focused, and just let the wet amp sort of. But yeah, I will have a separate reverb pedal specifically for the dry amp, and it just adds a little bit to it. And more on that in a minute, actually.
Sébastien Boisvert, or he might be Sebastian.
How did you get? Okay,
he might be
right.
Sebastian Boisvert.
Okay.
He mentions Van Halen because apparently in the production of some Van Halen records, you've got dry sound on one side and then you've got reverb on the other. That's a production thing.
Yep.
That's kind of different from what you might think of in a live environment. That's that's for the producer to worry about those kind of things. But if you've never watched any of Rick Beato's videos on that, check out his YouTube channel where he explains some classic Van Halen tracks among others.
Awesome.
The guy's depth of knowledge is unsurpassed and he is a wonderful watch. So please watch that.
Russell Raymer, Sam Adkins, Drew Kay and Epitome, among others, all wanted the glorious mess of all three boxes for the element chain together. So they're asking if you come out of one spring tank and then into the other and then sort of chain them, would that work? I'm not exactly sure how they've done it in the element. The issue with the spring tanks is that they've got to be driven to a point. So if you imagine the signal goes in through the transducer, which then changes the energy to work with the springs, and then back out through a transducer, and that is coming back into the pedal, and then that signal has got to be lifted back up, recovered, and so you would need a recovery stage between different spring sections.
We should try it because it might be enough to drive two of them. You never know.
Maybe you'd have to. The output of the first one would have to be
have to be too high. Yeah. Okay.
But let's give it a go.
Yuppie. What was that huge resonance with the Anna sounds? It sounded like playing in a band rehearsal room that had a snare with a mattress loose. It's got a switch on the top.
It's got a switch on it that just changes the gain structure and adds like a level of overdrive into the reverb.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So you don't have to have that if you don't want it, but you can for that over the top crazy sound, which is also how you got it feedbacking.
That's right. Anthony Smith says, on the Audio Kitchen, how does switching channels for a traditional clean and crunch setup work when the unused channel controls the reverb? It doesn't. You just have, if you want to use the reverb, you just choose a side and then you use the other side for the reverb. You can't have both channels and reverb.
Right, so if you want to channel switch it, the reverb won't work.
Exactly.
William Smothers. Hello, William. What are the chances of you guys getting around a true plate reverb sometime? We would need to go somewhere to do that because they are quite large.
Yep.
Do we know if Soundgas have got one?
We are going to go. If anyone has one, they'll have one.
We're going to go up to Soundgas and do a show there.
Take a camp up there for a week and just...
Yeah, proper plate reverbs can be extremely big and very heavy, so getting one here is probably unlikely, but yes.
Okay.
Sub Rosa, what are your thoughts on reverb drive controls? It often seems to be that an amp maker's selling point to highlight tube-driven reverb. Many mainstream or budget-friendly amps are solid-state driven reverb circuits, such as a Blues Junior, for example. And of course, true spring reverb pedals are solid-state as well. Does it make that much difference to have a valve or tube driving and recovering the reverb?
I would say it's less about the tube, more about the design of the sort of preamp that's driving it. Yes, of course, if you've got a really great designed tube circuit that's doing the send and the recovery side of the reverb, it's fantastic. But that's not to say that the solid state thing can't sound fantastic.
Yeah, I think in the old Fender amps, in the Super Reverb particular, if you dime the reverb, you get a different flavour in the amp overall, so that overdrive that is sending and recovering the reverb will overdrive as well.
Sure.
And people will use that. In fact, some people disconnect the reverb and turn it right up to get more overdrive.
Yep.
So does it make that much difference? Yes, it does, if you want to use it in that way.
Sure. And Brian Connor asks about changing the valve in an amp such as a Princeton Reverb. Doesn't make that much difference. I'm assuming you're asking about the
reverb valve.
The reverb valve.
Yeah.
And yes, of course. If you change your you change your 12X7 for 12A Y7 or 12A T7, you are changing the amount of gain that's in that circuit, and yes, it makes a massive difference.
Andrew Z and Camp Buzzo, among others, want to know what's the reverb chord. I said, here's the chord that everyone plays when they do a reverb, and Simon, bless him, cut to the pedal board because it was more important to be on the pedal board at that time. Daniel, what is this chord?
Okay, so voice like that. It's an E minor 9 chord.
You got more fingers on than I have.
That one? Yeah. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. Just shout out what the notes are.
Sorry, you've got an E, B, you got a G, but then you have an A. So, which is like so E minor. There's your 11, and then you've got your minor 7, and then your 9th.
So you're saying it's a G chord?
It's an E minor chord.
Oh,
voice like that.
Yeah. Nice. That's what that was. Can you play us other well-known chords?
Can I?
Which ones? Yeah. Danny Walker GMC. Can you explain Class A, Class AB and other types of amps, please? Other classes of amps, please. It still confuses me. Yeah, we can. Go onto Wikipedia and read it. Physics. The point where it stops making any sense whatsoever is when you get two amps in a room and you go, this one's Class A, this one's Class AB. Listen to the difference. It's like, well, it's just one part of that amplifier's design.
Sure. It has to do with the waveform, the cycle of the waveform, which valves are amplifying which part of the cycle, and if you've got a valve that's doing the whole cycle, then it's sort of Class A. But there's if you go, I mean, so many people have so many different definitions of it. So
I just stopped worrying about it when I realised it made no sense to what I was hearing coming out of the speakers, because then you add things like cathode bias, fixed bias, then you add stuff like the whole rest of the design, what valves it uses, what speakers it uses, how much gain there is in it, and it just becomes, oh, this is Class A, it's brilliant.
Right, Tom Rose and the Heathen Orchestra, very nice. He says, really analog drive-through. I'm afraid the talk of analog drive-through is a bit baffling. It reminds me very much of the true bypass good buffers evil debate. On two separate shows, you referred to the true spring as analog drive-through, which it is not. And this demonstrates to me that analog drive-through is irrelevant. If you cannot hear the difference, the method of passing signal uses, and it does not adversely affect the rest of your signal chain, then surely it doesn't matter whether a pedal is analog drive-through or not. And he says, I read a thread on one of those guitar forums where the Source Audio head honcho was explaining why analog drive-through is basically marketing BS and often has a negative impact on the signal. He would say that. I'm left none the wiser and stick to the principle that the only important thing is if you like how a pedal sounds in your rig, then the rest is for the birds. Okay.
Let's deal with that bit by bit then. So the True Spring by Source Audio is not analog drive-through, and we said that it was, and we thought it sounded good enough that it was. So what have we learned there?
Right. Yes, it's not analog drive-through. There's a bunch of their last reverb pedal, the multi-effects one, was analog drive-through, except for a couple of engines on it.
That's what I wondered, whether once you engage the harmonic tremolo, then it's not analog drive-through, for example.
Yeah, sure, but yeah, it doesn't. They've kept it completely digital so that they can do things like add the tremolo and things on it. So, right, does it matter? It matters to me in the sense that I don't want my signal to be digitized. As soon as I know that it's digitized, it's a mental thing for me. Now, it sounds great, and
it's partly mental.
Because
I have the same thing with the vent.
Right. Okay.
Because it sounds digital to me. It sounds great, but it sounds digital.
Okay. The issue that I have is because I run a wet dry rig. Okay, I've got the reverb I've got that's going to, like I was saying before, this goes to my dry amplifier. I've got the Chase Bliss Audio Dark World in there, and when I turn that on, everything sounds amazing. It just adds a bit of reverb. The True Spring, if I turn that on, it shifts the phase ever so slightly from the dry amplifier, because as soon as everything's digital, you are going through an AD converter, and even the best AD converters in the world will add a tiny bit of latency, and that tiny bit of latency is enough to change the phase relationship between the two amplifiers.
On a mono board, it would be all but imperceptible.
Absolutely. If you're just running a mono board, it's great, and it's like, it's only a thing for me. I just don't really want to have any part of my signal digitized. And believe me, the way that I play, I could do with the latency. I could, everything is so urgent the way that I play. I could do with just having everything back a little bit.
Yeah.
But saying that, it's like the H9, it's a fantastic pedal, and there are loads of guys that use it. It's completely digital.
Whether I can, there are so many examples of this, and the one that always comes up is Josh Smith.
Yep.
Wherever the horn is.
Actually, I'm building another board for Josh Smith tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
With another H9.
Yeah, so he likes it. He likes not analog drive-through, therefore it's
Tim
okay.
Pierce.
Yeah.
Loves the...
So it's fine.
Bloody thing is telling me to breathe again.
We're
Enough.
talking cobblers, Dan, aren't we? Just rubbish.
Yep.
That's all we're doing.
Yep.
However, I'm pretty sure that when you gain stack a couple pedals and you've got that AD conversion go, I swear I can hear it.
Yeah.
There's there, which is there, but then all the proper high end that should be there isn't there.
Right.
Anyway, it's contentious.
Yep.
Let's move on.
Leading on, after the spectacular performance of the Jam Pedals Rattler, there are lots of people looking forward to the Rat episode, which is coming this Friday. Including JD Green 916, John Channing, Kyle Atkinson, Evan Miller, Mark Stretton, Jake Day, Adam Miller, The Bat Eggs, Lemon Holiday Prod, Rod Clark, Franken Guitars, and many, many more.
Yes, that Jam Pedals Rattler was surprising. Much more information on that on Friday's main show, where we go through a bunch of Ratter-likes.
And this leads to Kevin Bankston's question. I would imagine that you get a ton of pedals sent to you now. I would like to hear how you decide what gets a chance to make the show.
Truthfully, what happens is we're like, oh God, what the hell are we going to put on Pick and Mix today? We stand out in the hallway and line them all up, and we try and pick a couple of drives and then something wobbly and something ambient.
Yep.
So a delay and a reverb, or a tremolo and a reverb, or a tremolo and a delay, or a phaser and a delay. One of the issues we have is we've got about 50 overdrive pedals set out there, which we're literally never going to get to.
Yep.
Or it's unlikely to get to, because if, for example, something comes in, it's like, oh, this is an exact replica of a TS-808, that goes to the bottom of the list, pretty much. If this is an exact replica of a TS-808 with these features, some of which have been done before, but some of which haven't, it raises up the list a bit.
Yeah, as soon as it's interesting,
Yeah.
it's got to pique our interest, and once our interest is piqued,
Yeah.
then
Or if we
we're
want a
there.
new pedal for our pedal board. So
Yep.
I've got a new pedal this week. Dan's got a new pedal this week. That will go on Pick and Mix. So it's stuff that we think is interesting.
Yeah.
Which
Or stuff that we
isn't
get
very
requested.
helpful.
If people,
Yeah,
if
actually,
there's something that's come out and
that's a
everyone's
good
going,
point.
oh, this, I've seen this, it looks really great. And
That's a great
yeah,
point.
so that's how it gets done.
Yeah, True Spring's a good example of that.
Absolutely. Yep.
It's probably not a pedal that Dan and I necessarily would have looked at. And then all of a sudden, everyone's like, oh, please feature this. And
Yep.
we feature it and we go, oh my God, that's really good.
Yep. Sounds great.
So happy days.
Yep. Ivan, how do you say it?
Chipkowski.
Chipkowski.
Ivan Chipkowski.
Leads us nicely to into the other video from this week, in which was your vlog on the mid-side technique, which I thought was bloody fascinating.
It was interesting.
It was really, really
nerdy.
great. Oh,
Well, it was as nerdy as I'm ever likely to get. But
so first he asks, Mick, you say that you can't play any amp without reverb. Do you forget the almighty high watt? Plug your axe in and just play.
So Dan and I both say we don't like playing amps without reverb. The high watt is a magic thing, but I would always add reverb to it.
Yeah. If the amp doesn't have reverb, the Sovtech MiG 50, which I'm using all the time now, I'm loving it. Doesn't have reverb, but there's always reverb going into it.
The high watt's like having your teeth drilled, and then if you add reverb, it's like having an anaesthetic beforehand.
There you go.
So it's still slightly unpleasant.
And Cody Carrick wants to know, what's the advantage of mid-side miking over something like a stereo XY, such as a Rode NT4, because he's looking to record some live things.
Yes, I have a Rode NT4 that we used for our. We've used it for all kinds of things over the years.
The mic that has the head.
Yeah.
Great,
And then
great sounding
after
mic.
that, we used the AKGs in an XY configuration. It's said, and the reason that we tried mid-side in the first place is it is said that you have much more control over the stereo image when you have mid-side, because you can choose how much side you want and how much mid you want. Personally, I think it does that. It gives you more control over the image, whereas what I was finding with the two XY mics is this one might be getting loads more of that amp and that one might be getting loads more of that amp, and sometimes it was a little bit hard to deal with.
Sure.
It also means they can be mounted up there out the way in a very tidy fashion, which I really also enjoy.
I think that goes to the question where it's loads of people are suggesting there must be a better way to duck the vocals against the amp mics. Tyler Kenny, Tamaka, and many, many others, for example.
Yeah, if somebody wants to come in and show me how to do that one day, I'm happy to go through it all again. But believe me, I've spent hours and hours watching YouTube tutorials on this stuff and trying it and... Yeah.
Okay. That's
never say never.
Never say never. Right. Mark Desling and D Pros. How do you sync up the audio to the video? SMPTE.
That's how you would do it professionally, or some sort of time code. That's how it works in broadcasting and television. We don't do that. We just go, okay, here's the video, and the video will have an audio track on it, which you can see the waveform. Because we have the mic on the camera turned on, and then we'll drag the voice. So the voice audio gets output, the guitar's audio gets output, and that is 2 tracks of audio, right? And they are exactly the same length. So you just drag both of those. And the great thing about any decent video editing software is that you can play it, and then you can just nudge it left and right until you hear that it's exactly bang on. If it's 1 frame out, you'll get a tiny little delay and you can hear that immediately. So that's how we do it, literally that. And because it's all done at 48K, it lines up. There's no drift. Sometimes I've had situations in the past where there is a bit of drift once you get 15 minutes in. But with these cameras,
Wow.
Yeah, with these cameras and with Logic and with the Apollo 8Ps, you literally just drag it in. It takes about 10 seconds.
Right.
Cool. Because there's all that when I watch people doing videos, they're like, oh, we need to clap so that you can see it's like, you don't need to do that. You just need to nudge it so you can hear that it's in.
Yeah.
And then you mute the camera audio.
Right. Barbecue Geek says, hey Mick, how long are the cable runs from your pedal board back to the amps?
They are 15 feet, I think, maybe 20 feet. We use the guys at First Line Distribution sent us these nice Evidence.
Oh, they're lovely.
They're very nice. So they're that long, which is 15 feet, I think. 3 meters,
Cool.
maybe 4 meters. 4 meters.
4 meters. Okay, yes, 4 meters.
Yeah,
Very good.
there you go.
And finally,
But
Ian Patterson.
they're lovely low capacitance. So
They're really
if
nice.
they were 4 meters as a very high capacitance cable, that would be a different business.
Yep. Finally, Ian Patterson and Justin Willock says, the Newman badge is facing the wrong way on the TLM 102s. Did you mean to have the diaphragm facing out, or did you spin the diaphragm?
Yes, so it only has the diaphragm on the same side as the Neumann badge. When I did the close-up, I had them facing...
Right.
I've placed them on the amps and faced them out. I did that deliberately so you could see the Neumann badge.
Okay.
But when it's recording, it points that way towards the amp.
We love these.
Yeah.
We first heard these being recorded with Matt Schofield.
Yeah.
And his amps in the studio were blisteringly loud, possibly the loudest amps I've ever heard. And it's quite a challenge to record amps in that environment. And we went into the control room and it sounded glorious. And he had a couple of those on the mics, on the cabs, and we just went...
They do the high
please.
SPL very well. And they usually get mixed in lower than whatever other mic we're using, whether it's a dynamic or a ribbon. And yes, we're going to get some more ribbons. I really want to try those Bayer dynamic M160s.
Okay.
One thing that occurred to me about a ribbon mic, and maybe you might be able to help me in the comments on this. No, it's not here. Most ribbon mics, right, are figure 8.
Yes.
So if you point that side towards the amp, you've got that side hearing the room, which to
Really?
me is going to create all kinds of phase issues potentially.
Okay.
I had a real nightmare on the Rat Show this week because you were flipping the phase quite a lot,
Okay.
and I had to just listen to the vocal audio so that I could get it in the right place.
Oh boy. Okay.
And I thought, I wonder if it's an issue with the figure 8 ribbon mic. So one thing that appeals to me about the Bayer M160s is it's just a cardioid pattern.
Right.
So I think that could be the answer.
Get a bit of spray foam on the other side of the mic.
Well, that's another answer.
Okay. There we go.
If anyone knows about that, I'd be interested to hear your opinion.
All right, Tom Shand says, I really like the sound when you had the mid-side mics up and that extra 10 dB,
Yeah.
or really loud, gave the sound more character and sounded less sterile to me. Wish you had them at that level all the time.
This is that thing where when you record something on an iPhone, it sounds massive.
Okay.
And it sounds really great. And everyone goes, why don't you just have that sound? Because it sounds huge. And it sounds huge because the iPhone is...
compressed to all...
Yeah,
goodness.
it's expanding, compressing.
Yeah.
It's EQing. It's doing so many things to just give you this completely fake, albeit often brilliant version of the sound. Having the room mics up like that kind of does that a little bit, because what you're getting is more room than direct sound, and it's not really what you hear. However, I would say that I think, as I explained in the video, what I'll do is on gainier sounds that need to be tighter and more direct, I'll bring the room mics down, and on stuff with reverbs and delays and where it needs to sound more open, I will bring the room mics up a bit.
Okay.
So it does get varied. Well, I just did some audio recently for one of the shows, and I ran them a little bit higher actually.
Okay.
But then I start hearing the room, and I don't want to hear the room as much as
Sure.
I want to hear what's coming out of the amp.
Yeah.
So it's a balance, and it's a creative decision.
Ben Morris asks, I was wondering what your motivation / justification is for the mics you use. There is never a right or wrong answer for this, but I was surprised not to see an SM57.
Yeah.
It's been a long mic journey for us, hasn't it? We've tried
Yeah. I mean,
E906s for a long time.
the 57 is where you would start.
Yeah.
And I think, because I've never had any, I've always had 906s. The reason I've had 906s is because they're flat. You can't trip over them. They're much harder to trip over. Whereas a 57 is quite long and trip overable.
Yep.
Certainly in our old space, they would be... And then I've just always gone with the 906 rather than the 57. But yeah, I mean... Yeah. I dare say, I mean, there are loads of comparisons online of 906s and 57s, but I dare say that with a bit of positioning and EQ, you literally couldn't tell the difference which is which.
I thought they were very similar, apparently.
Well, they're both dynamic cardioid mics.
That stuff.
Yeah.
Tups 57 was wondering if editing is longer than recording, how long does it take to edit an average 1 hour TPS episode?
Well, to shoot a 1 hour TPS episode, if you forget the prep time in terms of getting
Just
the
the
board
recording
together,
time.
but from the moment the record is hit to the moment the record is turned off, 1 hour would be probably a 1 hour 10 of filming, because there's usually something that goes wrong, or we need to just change some cabling or something.
I've gone off on a swearing episode.
Yeah, or one of us plays something so bad it needs to be cut. I mean, that doesn't happen very, very often. So yeah, they take about an hour and a half or an hour and 15 to shoot. And they take Simon. So on top of that, you can add an hour for me, an hour and a half to do the audio.
Yep. How long it takes to build the rigs, and
35 minutes it takes for me to drive to Simon's house and deliver him the stuff. It then takes Simon probably 5 or 6 hours per episode, maybe 5 hours to edit. And if it's me, it takes about 7 or 8. Actually, Simon could probably do it in 4. And then you have to watch it, and then you have to tag and bag it. Watching it, tagging and bagging it, i.e. writing the description, doing all the links and everything, takes about 5 hours.
If you guys haven't gone to the description on the videos, check it out, because it's fantastic. Mick he goes to all the interesting sections of the videos and has links to them, and then the description of everything that's there. It's very cool.
So there's probably, if you consider like a working day as 8 hours, there's probably 2.5 person days in a video.
Boy, oh boy.
Something like that.
Yep.
Maybe 2 person days.
Okay, and finally, I did say finally before, but I didn't realise we had a third page.
Yeah, sorry, this is going to be a long one today, isn't it?
Erajad says, hi, DNM.
Oh, no. Carl...
Oh, sorry.
Carl Bickerstaff says, do you have any noise suppression on the amp mics? No, don't use any noise suppression. People get confused when the vocal mics come up, they hear a lot of hiss, and when the amp mics come up, there's no hiss. These are gained probably 5 times higher than those, so what you hear is 5 times more noise than the amp mics. But no, we don't use any noise suppression anywhere. No. The only thing I do is I will EQ these on a really thin Q at 50, 100 and 200 to just get rid of some mains hum.
Yeah.
These, but not those.
Yeah. Great. And finally, Erajad says, hi, DNM, great show. Thank you very much. Any idea when the string is going to show up in the store? I keep watching, you keep mentioning them, and I keep waiting. Thanks.
For anyone who doesn't know, we're doing some string sets with Kurt Mangan. There's a Dan set and a mix set. The mix set goes from 10.5 to 50. The Dan set goes to 11 to 52. And they are on the water.
Brilliant.
Yep. So I'm hoping within the next 10 days or so, they will be in the store.
Fabulous. Thanks, guys, so much. Have a fantastic week, and we will see you soon. Bye.